Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I want to talk again about how the narcissist parent uses a hoarding problem to triangulate and isolate their children. But to add to this, how they use the smear campaign in conjunction with this. And keep in mind this is all coming from the examples of my mother who did all of this to myself and my golden child brother. And yes, narcissist fathers can do this to their children as well. But I want you to keep something in mind. And it's something I will keep on addressing. There is a difference between the narcissist mother and narcissist father. And it's something I'm finding more and more women that were raised by narcissist mothers are talking about. And that's the narcissist mother uses the fact that she's a woman to get away with a lot more than what the narcissist father might be able to get away with. Now this doesn't diminish the abuse that narcissist fathers dish out. Not at all. However, narcissist fathers may have to be a bit more cunning. Not to say the narcissist mothers aren't extremely cunning. Because they are. But narcissist fathers know. Society is against them. So they must come up with a few more tricks. Or be a bit more careful so they are believed. Where is the narcissist mother? Feels like she can say any old lie and it will be believed. No proof. No fact-checking. Just flat out believed. And this was the case with my mother. Now, if you haven't watched the last couple videos where I spoke a bit about my childhood, go and check those out and come back to this one. But one of the things my mother did before her hoarding problem started was use the smear campaign and become a nuisance at my school, to where my brother and I got made fun of. Now how my mother used the smear campaign, in the beginning, was mainly geared towards my father. She told all of her flying monkeys and anyone else in earshot how horribly bad he treated her. Which I now believe was a complete lie. And then that's when she threatened my father with the lie that she was going to go to court and say he touched my brother inappropriately. Now, what I believe happened was, my father might have been close to at least joint custody. And that's not what my mother wanted. My mother wanted full custody because that meant having my brother and I full time. Which meant she would get money to where she would never have to work. Because once my father passed away shortly after she got custody, and she blew through his money, she happily got on the system and worked it like no other I've ever seen. She became a master at all things free and getting money from every free money program out there. And that's something she wouldn't have been able to do had she got joint custody and my father had lived at least long enough for us to get through school. You see, my mother never, and I mean never ever, worked a day in her life. My mother has milked the system with fake illnesses and all kinds of things now to the point where she is finally really ill. But she knew she never wanted to work, I think, from the moment she could walk and talk, and did what she had to do to make that happen. So she lied about everything she could about my father. And smeared his name everywhere she could. But then out of nowhere came this lie about my brother and my father. And I believe it's a lie to this day. Because it's something my brother never addressed. And I believe my mother chose my brother for this lie instead of me. Because she knew I questioned anything that wasn't true. And she knew my brother would go along with the gaslight just to receive her fake love. And also, because it's my belief. If you are a parent, and you believe the other parent is doing something harmful to your child, or you know and have proof, you go after that other parent with everything you've got. You don't just threaten. And parents that just do this little threaten move. And then once they get what they want, they drop everything. They did what they did just to get what they wanted. Not because their claims were true. Along during this time in grade school, my mother tried to lay her drama on the parents of the children I went to school with and the teachers. And for a short while they acted like they felt sorry for her and tried to help her. But after a while they realized she was an utter nut job. Just wanting free crap from them. And my mother becoming a nuisance to these people. Trickled down to my brother and I being bullied and treated horribly bad, not just by the students at this school but by the teachers as well. Each and every day was a literal hell on earth. And that's where mine and my brother's educations were sabotaged. Now a good part of this was done by my mother. Because she knew that us having a poor education would further isolate us from having a normal life. And yes, many narcissist parents will use this as a tool. But the teachers seemed to get a kick out of setting us up to fail and not understanding we were just children. And that we weren't our mother. I remember. I had one teacher. Back then that was so kind and nice. And I believe she understood what was happening. I remember she would spend extra time with me. And kept on telling me, James, I don't believe you belong in these slow learning classes. You are super smart. I just believe you aren't getting the help you need at home and encouragement you need in your other classes. Now, you see, as I've mentioned before, I would conversate with anyone about anything. I would see something on the news. And I would have an opinion even at 7 or 8 years old. And I could rationally make my case about it. And it was this kind of thing that stunned this teacher and made her think and believe the positive things she thought and believed about me. But shortly after I started to make positive strides with this teacher, she got married and moved to another state. And I ended up with a replacement teacher that treated me like a dummy and a waste of time. Throughout this time, I began questioning things at home. My father had passed away. And now I became the bad guy to my mother. Even though I was just a little kid in grade school. The same flying monkeys my mother used to talk about regarding my father. I was now filling that place he once occupied. You see, narcissists always need a scapegoat. And now my father had lost in court. Well, he gave up, as I believe, as he was advised by his attorney, who was also his friend. And I became the new scapegoat. And then when my father passed away shortly thereafter, I really became the scapegoat. She would take things I would say out of context and tell her so-called friends on the phone about what I said and did. Or she would create an argument and then right when it was going on, she would pick up the phone and call her flying monkey friends so they could hear me questioning things in the background. All the while my mother would be saying to these flying monkeys, "Oh, James is over here again, making my heart race." Yes. I know. I will tell him what you said. James. So and so said you better stop what you're doing because you only have one mother. What will you do if you make me have a heart attack and die? And this stuff just went on and on. And she would sucker me at the age of 8 and 9 years old and beyond into these arguments so she could call her flying monkeys and get her fix of narcissistic supply. At this time there was no hoarding. Because my mother had complete control over things and was getting plenty of narcissistic supply. But as I mentioned before, the neighborhood we lived in was getting more and more dangerous. So we moved. We moved to another real cheap place but a bit more safe. But the school I was going to at this time was quite a bit bigger than before. And it was very hard for my mother to run her games like previously. So that's where the hoarding began. Now, as mentioned before, she wasn't filthy. Actually, she was a germaphobe. She sprayed everything with Lysol. But our place just looked like a big garage sale. It was embarrassing to say the least. And this was done to prevent my brother and I from excelling and having a normal life. You see, I look back on pictures before we moved when I was bullied. And I can say honestly. And I don't say this to be, what's the words I'm looking for? Narcissistically stuck on oneself. But I wasn't a weird-looking kid. I look at pictures of myself and I can say, I was actually above average in looks for a grade schooler despite my funny-looking clothes. And there's no reason why I shouldn't have been writing little notes back and forth with girls my age. And that's the reason why. Right there for my mother's sabotage. Because my mother knew the same thing. Because you have to understand, back then, I thought I was ugly and a loser. Based on how I was treated. And that's how the narcissist parent wants you to feel. Now, that being said, My mom would throw me a fake bone by saying, "Oh James, you are so handsome. I just wished you treated me better. Blah blah blah." And I believe she threw this bone to me because she knew I lived in this world of constant bullying I couldn't change. So she could say this nice thing about my appearance to make herself seem like a good mother. And the outcome would still be the same. I would still be bullied and I would still have a low self-esteem. And she would come out smelling like a rose to her flying monkeys. But now I'm living in a new area. She can't run her game on the new school teachers and parents. And she has 2 sons. That both are handsome but just don't know it. Going to school. And again. I say that not to say, "Hey, look at me." But it's an important reason why she really went hard to sabotage everything about our life, especially during this time period. Because the minute the hoarding started, it was out of control bad. Though she wasn't dirty. Our house was full of junk she swore she was going to sell to make a profit, which she never did. But what it did do? It deterred us from wanting to bring friends over. Or having a young lady we liked come over to sit down and have a soda or something. I remember during this time frame, I was being approached by girls my age and I didn't know what to do. I was so embarrassed about my life. I would just make stuff up as to why I couldn't hang out with them. But as I mentioned before, the few times I would get the courage to have a friend over, or the couple times I had a buddy stay the night, my mother would call 911 acting like she was having a heart attack. It was just a mess. That being said, my mother noticed that though I was doing poorly in school, I think because of my early education being sabotaged and not being able to gain some good momentum with doing well, I tried so hard but I just couldn't get it. Now I know I wasn't dumb. I just wasn't being helped. But again, I didn't understand this fact back then. But though this was the case, I was still trying to have a normal life. I was making friends. Or people I thought were friends. And though I couldn't drive, which was a video I made a while back. Another tactic the narcissist parent uses to isolate you, which seems like a common trend amongst those of us that had a narcissistic parent or parents. But though this was the case, my friends were able to drive and we went places. To the mall to walk around. And other places like that. I would do little odd jobs to make a little bit of money here and there to buy a few things for myself. And my mother noticed I was starting to see the normal side of life. And that's where my mother pretended to be a good mother to me. And that's where I dropped my guard and started to bring my friends I was going to the mall with around my home. Even though it was embarrassing with all the junk. My mother was now acting nice and didn't seem like she was going to be faking heart attacks anymore. And she did all of this to get close to my friends. And some. Not all. But some of their parents. And she did all of this behind my back. To make it seem like I was a bad kid. And she did this by dropping little seeds just to watch them grow little by little. Like. You are such a good friend to James. I too love James very much. But sometimes he gets so angry it scares me and I don't know what to do. And little by little she started to make some of these people hate my guts. Some of them it took until after high school where they told me. You know James. Your mother has been telling me for years how horrible you are to her. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. And why does the narcissist parent do all of this? To strip you down so you have nothing. And I do mean nothing but them. This is why if you have limited contact, do not let these people know where you work. Who your new friends are. Nothing. They will lull you back to sleep with being nice. And then you think you can bring your new group of friends around them. Or someone you're dating. And before you know it, they will start to plant the seed. The seed of triangulation. And the seed of isolation. All in the name of making you look like the bad guy or bad girl. Does anything from this resonate with you? I'm curious. Because iron truly sharpens iron. We are growing and bettering ourselves together. With that said, let's continue to pray for wisdom. Let's continue to pray for strength. And let's continue to pray for courage. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.